So I understand the life of being a student in China, and then from there I went into professional life directly in China. So I never left after I moved to China 18 years ago. After graduating, I joined a big American communication company called Hill and Knowlton. I spent about 8 years there, building my knowledge of working in China, of the profession that I'm still doing, which is communication consultant. And that means helping companies or other organizations to communicate, to tell their stories. And also developing my love for technology and for cross-border innovation. Although I am not an engineer, I know a lot of you are probably studying some form of engineering, especially at Beihang. UAB, there's a bit less engineering over there. So I got a bit on the late into understanding how some of the technologies that I support work, and this is all part of the curiosity that we'll be talking a bit about later. So after 8 years in that first big American group, I joined a smaller American group. For about 3.5 years, I was running the Beijing office. So I was the general manager of the Beijing office of an American PR agency that specialized already in technology. And I built an expertise in semiconductor PR over there, and then slowly moving into software at the same time. So adding software to hardware. And after 3.5 years of that, agreement with my management on what I wanted the company to do in China. So I went on my own and started Influence Matters, which is a PR agency that specializes in B2B technology. I don't want to go too much in detail into what the business does. Just simply, we help foreign startups, scale-ups, and SMEs that are already relatively well-funded in general, so that have raised anywhere in between, let's say, 20 and 300 million US dollar over the past 2 years. Well, there you go. You have it on the slide. We've worked for about 60 clients over the past 5 years since I founded the agency. We're 17 as of next Monday. Actually, we'll be 17. We have a new team member joining in offices in Beijing and Shanghai. I actually just got off the train from Shanghai 2 hours ago and made it straight to the office to talk to you. So that's what we do. We help these companies be successful in China. We support their success with communication strategies. We're going to create their story in China, and then we're going to help them tell their story to their potential partners, customers, employees through the media. We work a lot with media organizations. Through social media, we run social media channels for our clients, or through the participation at events. That's all I'll say about the business, because it's not entirely relevant. Kind of curiosity, and I'll talk about it when we go through kind of the Q&A. How it got me to kind of start my own business, because it wasn't the plan at all, and how it got me to continue and be where I am now. I'm not successful yet. But I do believe that after 5.5 years and 17 employees, we're there. We're doing good, and we're already recognized as a player in our market in China, which is the first step to success, I want to say. Now, on top of that, I do a few other things. I'm also the founder of the French Tech, which is an organization that promotes French innovation and technology all around the world. I'm one of the founders of the Beijing chapter, which I founded 5 years ago for that. And we work with French startups, with the Chinese startup ecosystem, and with the government on both sides to promote cooperation and innovation in between both countries. I still run. I'm the vice president of the organization. I still run it, and that puts me very close to very early level entrepreneurs, early stage entrepreneurs, and on the government side, how government views entrepreneurship, how they view innovation, and how they also support and at the same time do not support cross-border innovation, especially in between Europe and China. And then there's a couple other organizations that I founded that support my network. One, which is called the China Tech PR Network, which is kind of dormant, but will restart soon, which is a B2B network for PR and marketing professionals in the technology industry. And I also I founded and I run a WeChat account, which some of you might know, which is called Networking Matters. And that is a weekly agenda of entrepreneurship and technology events in Beijing and Shanghai. So it's a WeChat account that has about 14,000 followers by now, which I also founded about 5 years ago. Part of the curiosity thing is that when you starting things, you can't stop starting things. I guess that's for the intro. If you have any,
Wow,
any
that's really,
questions.
really okay.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. Great. I think that was a really, really well detailed info. Although you said you don't want to go into details, but I think that's really detailed. And thank you so much for that. And like you mentioned, like you started as a student. Back in 2005, I think I was still in like primary or nursery school then.
2002 actually is when I arrived in China. 2005 is when I graduated. So yeah, it was 2002. And first time in China in 1999 to come check if I
Wow.
liked it.
That's quite a long time. So I feel like you have a very great big understanding of the market and how it's changed over time a lot. And starting as a student, because like we have a lot of students here also. And like you said, like curiosity, once you start once your curiosity starts to get on you, you can't really stop. And so as a student coming out into like this world of entrepreneurship and professional life, how has your curiosity been able to help you from transitioning from being a student and going into the market? How did it help you in that part?
So I think there's probably several stages in the in curiosity and in understanding my curiosity and grabbing it and then managing it in my whole life, let's say, because it started earlier than when I was a student. Actually, I want to start with when I decided to come to China. I was 14 when I told my parents I'm moving to China. You know, I'm from France originally, for those who didn't figure it out from my slight accent. I was 14 when I told my parents I will move to China to study there and never come back. And that's rather early. So that's the mid 90s in Europe, where there's one university actually in China, in France, that would allow you to do, that had a program that was 2 years in. So there was only one program that was not a language program, it was a business program that would allow me to come to China for more than half of my studies. And that came, deciding when I was 14, came through being curious about very, very different things to what I was accustomed to in Europe. Now, that was fostered by my upbringing and my parents. My parents were expatriates for many years. I came along towards the end of that. I wasn't born in France. I was actually born in Ireland. But though, you know, my parents having traveled quite a lot brought me that travel curiosity. And when I was 14, I was reading the economic papers every single morning. So I was always a very big reader of news, which for some reason, you know, took me to PR, which is about news later. So it's a whole, you know, news has been a big driver in my curiosity. So when I was 14, I was reading the economic papers, the French economic papers, because I loved economy. I was very interested and curious about the economy and the global economy, and I was reading a lot about how French companies were struggling in China. In '95, China was a country that was opening up only for foreign companies, and you had some German companies, Volkswagen, for example, that were succeeding, but the French were all, you know, breaking their teeth trying to be successful in China. I was trying to wonder why, and was there anything that, you know, would be interesting for me to be part of? And that's when I started learning Chinese at 14 and figuring out which program I wanted to do to go to China, and that. Again, curiosity, identifying how I could grasp, you know, that thing that I was really interested in. How can I really do it? And it started by, you know, finding the right program, the right studies, and the right city. That came a bit by accident, because originally I actually moved to Shanghai, and the university partnership with a French university, moved to UIB after my first year in China. So in the fostering of that curiosity, one thing that was really important is the support of people around me, and at that time, especially of my parents. I was 14, 15, 16, and keeping on to tell my parents that I was going to move to China. My parents were a bit worried. I had never been to China, right? What if I don't like it? What if they pay for a university program? I move to China, and after 2 weeks, I hate it, and I just want to come back. So they bought me, to help me foster, manage that curiosity to see if it was real and it could turn into a plan. They actually took me to China when I was 18 for my 18th birthday. My dad was on a business trip to China and took me with him, and I visited Beijing and a couple of other cities with him to see if I really liked it. And of course, I loved it. How can you not love China, especially in '99, actually, when Beijing was still pretty dirty city, very disorganized. Not the Beijing that you know now at all. Very different. A couple of years, I was so motivated to get into that program that I aced the exam to get into the program. Did the program, and did 3 years of university in China and graduated from there. But when you graduate, and I wasn't never had I thought about entrepreneurship. So we'll go into entrepreneurship a lot later because I never planned to start a company. That really wasn't the idea. So I graduated from university. I didn't really know what to do. I studied, general business. I knew I was interested in marketing. I knew I was interested in big companies and helping them to be successful in China. And I got this opportunity in a big American group to try out public relations. Okay. I always joke that the first day when I started my job, I sat down and I Googled what is public relations. I took a job in public relations having no idea what public relations was, but it sounded interesting. Again, I guess that's part of the curiosity, right? And then the next couple of years, I started learning about what PR is and started to define a bit more what I was interested in. Still reading the news a lot, and that's one of the advices that I'm going to give a few times tonight is read a lot or watch videos on YouTube or the channels or things that you're interested in, because this is going to foster your next step. It's going to help you understand what you're really interested in and what is going to tickle you. So at the time, my first job in PR allowed me to be able to digest a lot of information from reading the news very fast. I was using the now defunct, you're probably all too young for that, the now defunct Google Reader. Yeah. Which was an RSS reader from Google, and I had all of my feeds in there. I use Feedly now, and it gave you statistics. And I had an average article read of 1,000 articles per day. So I was reading 1,000 news articles per day. Now I wasn't reading them from top to bottom. Most of them I was only reading the first three words of the title, and I wasn't interested in what was in there. But I would move on, and I would browse 1,000 articles and probably read 50 in depth in 2 hours in the morning. It was my morning routine, and it was part of my job to do so because I was doing news monitoring for my clients. And I figured out I was reading more and more technology news, innovation news, and further down the line more startup news and startup that were trying to be successful in China, but still never thinking about being an entrepreneur. After a couple of years, I got interested in management. I was curious about how do you manage a business, and I got this opportunity to take over the Beijing office of an American company and work more on the management of that business. So go from the PR part, from the execution part, helping clients in communicating in China, developing strategies, to doing that, but also building a team, building a company for somebody else, an office for somebody else. So with the support that I had in the bank, and that got me really interested in how do business work, which I think is really important. And then moving on to the next stage, which was disagreements, and that was part of the curiosity too, I think, because I was starting to get a lot more interested in how can we really help startups and smaller companies in China. But when you're a big to work with you, and I really want to work with those. So because we couldn't, I got into disagreement with my management at the time, we parted ways, and I started looking for a job where I would be doing exactly that, working for startups and smaller companies that were entering China and needed support there. But I couldn't find that job, and I was at the same time looking for freelance projects because I was out of a job and I had a kid and a half already, a half because my wife was pregnant with number two. So kind of pressure on getting a job and getting an income. So I was doing kind of two things at the same time, looking for a job and looking for projects to freelance and get a bit of revenue. And there came another one of the people that fostered and that controlled a bit my curiosity and supported me was my wife, that at the time said, stop doing two things at the same time. You'll be more interested in starting a business. Go 100% in that. And that's when I decided to actually go do a startup. I was thinking about it, starting a business, but I needed someone, and it's the same, I think, for a lot of people. You need that support, especially from, your wife and mother of your children, who you're supposed to support, with your work, who tells you, go ahead, go do what you're really interested in. You'll be happier doing that, and you might be successful doing it at the same time. But you'll be happier because you'll do what you want to do. And that's how I got to start a company. That was Influence Matters, and that was 5.5 years ago. We want to say the rest is history, but not in this case, because without continuing to be curious during that whole process until now, and still now, you start a business and you're like, okay, I remember the first day I sat behind a desk, behind a computer, took one desk in a small co-working space, cost I think 600 quid per month, because I no client, no budget, nothing. And that's when you go, okay, I'm a business now. What do I do? And fostering of understanding and of researching your curiosity to understand, how do I actually register a business in China? Talking to a lot of people, and the same all the way up to now, where we've opened a second office. How do we do that? Of course, now I get some support, I get some help, but that's part of the curiosity, because you can't do everything. You get your advice from other people. So yeah, I think I forgot what the original question was, but I'm pretty sure I've answered at least part of it.
Yeah, I think you answered part of the question, based on like how your curiosity kind of helped you through the whole process. And I think another question, which I think, because a lot of people have this, I myself also have this experience, like you said, graduating and thinking, okay, do I go into doing projects, a lot of projects for people, or do I find a regular job? Trying to decide between that and trying to decide between what you want to do. And I don't know, I don't know, is there anything being too curious? Is there any term saying, okay, I'm too curious about too many things at the same time?
So I'm going to say no. There's not such a thing as being too curious.
Okay.
There is a thing that is, unmanaged curiosity. I don't see how you can be too curious. I'm curious about a million things, and I go down rabbit holes of, I'll give you an example. When I started working quite a bit on semiconductor clients, and as I mentioned, I am not an engineer, so I do not understand how semiconductor work, or I did not at the time. But I was really interested in how it works. So I started going into the rabbit hole of trying to understand how a semiconductor works. So going back, I started by doing an online course, actually, on programming first, and then an online course on electronic engineering. And to do that online course on electronic engineering, I needed to go back to, first, high school math, which is not enough to understand semiconductors for those who who want to go into that. I gave up after a while because it was really getting too far into the math, but I actually started taking classes in math, and I was spending an insane amount of time on that, up to the point where I figured out I didn't need to understand that much for what I was doing. I was interested in it, but at one point I needed to stop going too far down that rabbit hole, because it was taking me away from what my main mission was, which was to understand so I could help companies who are coming to China and that work on semiconductor, but I was never going to be an engineer myself.
Yeah.
So that's why I think you don't, you can't be too curious, but you need to make sure that that you manage and that you funnel that curiosity so you don't get dispersed too much. And that's, to me, extremely important. Everyone is curious. Those who are entrepreneurs act probably a bit more actively and do get the support on the side to act on that entrepreneurship. Those who do not, and I know quite a lot of people who are very curious but just don't have that I don't want to say courage, because it's sometimes I feel it is a bit crazy to go start a company. I mean, when you're younger, maybe, but when you have a family of a couple, and I know quite a few entrepreneurs. I know there's one on the line right now, actually, that has quite a few children and can't stop starting companies successfully for him. It's a bit crazy, but some people just have that drive. You have to do it. Some, it's a bit too complicated to actually take that risk, and I understand that. Now, maybe they'll do it later, but once you do start and you do act on that curiosity and start building businesses around, if it's not managed, you are going to hit walls. You are going to get distracted. You are going to work with people who do not understand you anymore, because you go into a direction that just keeps on, going far away. So you need, for me, it's it's been there's several things that put me back inside, back in the line when I was going out of line, and I still do very regularly. I still have ideas, and then I have now team members who I instruct to bring me back in line. I instruct them to tell me, if I'm going too far, just tell me, stop, Simon. This is not what we're supposed to do. Yeah. I have a wife that continues doing that, who's working full time for the business, for Influence Matters at the same time, and who helps me when I'm going a bit too far, and sometimes is going to encourage me on one that is online. For other people, it might be having a partner, a business partner that is going to bounce ideas, or that is going to put you back in line, or you're going to put that person back in line. So there are some of the ways that you can manage your curiosity and take you in the right direction, and make sure that you don't get lost. But you need to be conscious of that as the entrepreneur, or as the person who's starting his career. Be conscious of when you might be going a bit too far, and make sure that you have people, partners, friends, advisors, family members, to whom you tell what your plan, what your mission is, and if they see that you're going, they can put you back in.
I think that's really great. I think you answered part of the next question I was going to ask, which was more of how do you actually manage some of these things, and I think you already said some things in that.
Well, yeah, I've answered it partly. And there's so I've mentioned the people around, but there's another thing that I actually wanted to mention.
Okay.
There, I figured out, I think it's 2 years ago, when we were my company was going through a growth phase, and we were kind of losing our direction. So we spent quite a bit of time to rework on our direction, our mission, our values, which we're kind of still working on, and kind of put on paper where we wanted to go and what our objective was, which was extremely important. And to do that, I'd like to just mention one methodology, one tool that is actually pretty famous, that we kind of still use at that time, which are the OKRs. Maybe some of you have heard of what OKRs are, objective and key results. It's a methodology to plan the future development of a business that was invented under, it was one person at Intel, I think it was Intel, in the 80s, I believe, and early 90s, that built that system to manage the growth of a very fast growing company. that was working on a lot of different products at the same time and making sure that the whole organization was moving in the same direction, with objectives at each level, whether it's the top management, whether it's the the strategy level, whether it's the product level, whether it's the marketing level, whether it's even the manufacturing level. That methodology was perfected by Google. After the guy who invented that methodology came as an advisor to Google when there were about 10 people, and presented that methodology, saying, you guys have a great idea, but you all have 12 different ideas each that you want to go to, and this is not going to work. You're going to need to manage your vision. You're going to need to manage your direction together. And here's the methodology where you're going to identify what your main objective is as a business, and then how you define results. And you're going to define a couple key results, and you will achieve those, or you will do everything that you can to achieve those results in a year. And it's based on quarterly milestones. And anything that is not going to advance that objective is not something you should be spending. You have to not spend time on that. We did that in the company, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. We use the form of that because for our business, it's a bit, for a service business, a consulting business, it's a bit complicated. But we still work on a very clear objective that we remind ourselves of all the time. We meet about and we discuss, is what we're doing now, is what we're investing our time in going to take us to that objective. And for me as the entrepreneur, it's the same thing too. I need to remind myself of, what is the objective? What do we want to achieve next year and the year after that? Is that thing that I'm reading right now, is that person that I really want to meet because I want to learn about a new technology, or I want to learn about a new marketing tactic. Is that going to advance what I'm doing, or should I be focusing on something else? And that's where the people on one side is really important, but it's also making sure you have a tool, a methodology. OKR is one of them. There's plenty of those, but making sure that you take a step back regularly, revise, review your mission, make sure that it's still your mission, make sure that your business objective is still the same as an entrepreneur, make sure that your social objective, if you have a social impact objective, is still the same as an entrepreneur, and make sure that everything that you are doing now takes you to that direction.
Awesome. I think that was really clear. And the OKR technique is something like a lot of people actually miss, and I think even for me too, sometimes I kind of deviate from that. I think it's a really great way for people to actually get back into on track. So I think another question I'll ask you right now also is, you've had experience with working with a lot of companies trying to get into the Chinese market, and a couple of startups, I guess. So I don't know, what are some of the things you pinpoint, like when a company comes to you and hey, you know what, we've got this idea, we want to come into this market and want to start something here. What are some of the key things probably maybe you have to help them refine, especially in their goals and what they want, or maybe some common things that you find among all these companies trying to get into the market? What are some of the things I pinpoint, and how do you actually help them to fine tune it into the market?
It's a good question. We're as a PR consultant, we're advisors to our clients. Now we're advisors on communication strategies, but to advise on communication strategies, we need to understand the business strategies of our clients, whether they're big or small. We need to understand what they're trying to achieve in China, because our strategies are supposed to support that business objective and help them get to where they want to. So we spend quite a bit of time to try to understand what our clients' business objectives are in China, and often we see some of the companies, small or medium, rarely the bigger ones, who, when they're entering China or they're exploring China, they're really just exploring. They're really just they are curious about China. And they want to test the waters. They want to, do a little activity here. They want to maybe try to get a partner, and then maybe they'll invest in in a person, but they want to see if it's going to work first, which is something that I believe does not really work in China. If you are acting on China as a business, especially as a foreign company, you kind of need to be all out in China. It's a complicated market to just try to penetrate, just see if it's going to be suitable or not. If you're just trying and you want to see if it's going to work for your business, for your product, then the market, the Chinese market, is going to realize that very fast. China likes commitment. They like foreign companies coming to China and working with them, but they like it with commitment. They like companies who are going all out in China and who want to really support the Chinese market, who really want to support the Chinese environment, who want to support the Chinese economy. And the growth of China. We're not just coming to see if it's going to work, if maybe they can make a business, maybe they can bring some profits back. This is the main issue I see with a lot of companies coming to China. And I often tell companies that it's too early for them to come to China. They're not ready, or they're going to be eaten alive because they're not serious enough. And that's where, going back to curiosity, there is a case for not being curious enough, or not acting enough on your curiosity. Curious, is China going to work? You can do some research before, figure out if it's going to work before you get in. If you think it's not going to work, then don't. If you think it is, then go all out in and go find the right partners, go find the right investment in China, if that's going to help, the right connections, the right network, and then go for it.
Awesome. I think that those are really great points there. And okay, so because we have a bunch of students over here also, so I think what advice would you give a student who is okay, I want to start something in China? I've seen everything that's happening over here. I kind of understand the Chinese psychology, or the way that people work over here and everything, maybe from a few experiences, maybe internships and all this stuff. And it's time now. Okay, I want to do something in the market. I want to do something here. So what are some of the advice you would give the person to start out? For example, let's say if you were going to go back to when you were graduated, right? And your younger self, what would you tell your younger self getting into the market from the experience you've had so far? What are the things you would tell the person? Okay, hey, you've got to do this, or some of the first steps you have to take in getting into the market?
So I tell that to a lot of people, and I would tell it to myself when I graduated too. One of the things that I think was really important in me being where I am now as an entrepreneur that has a company that hasn't died yet, it was getting some experience. So what I recommend most people who graduate in China and think of starting a business right away, I always think someone else as an employee in a company in the field that you're interested in. I did it the other way around. I found a company and then I got interested in the field and then started a company there. But if you have that idea already and you think it could be interesting to start a business on that idea might be able to wait 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Or if it can't wait, you'll have another one in the next 3, 4, 5 years, and you might be better off working for another company, small or big, it doesn't really matter, but getting that work experience with some level of security that allows you to focus on the learning how to work, learning how to do business, learning how to deal with people in a professional way. Just learning how to become professional. You don't necessarily learn that a lot in university. I was a dumb professional. I was a non-professional when I came out of university. It took me, all the years of experience, 10 plus years of experience before I started a business, to realize that, when I started a business, some of the things were natural because I had been doing it for 10 years. So that's the main advice I would give to people who just graduate and have that entrepreneurship vibe. Go, work in a company. You can still, start things on the side. Maybe start an organization, join Startup Grind, and be active in there, because that's where you can also foster some of your entrepreneurship vibe. I kind of did that when I started, the French Tech, for example, at the same time as I started a business. With the business, I couldn't really experiment too much. Because I had this need to succeed relatively fast because I had a family and all. But the organization was where I could kind of experiment things and see if that works or not. And those some of these experiments could turn into a business at one point.
Yeah.
The bigger advice on top of all of that is just to follow your curiosity, follow what you're interested in, find that job in that field. If if you have something you're really interested in, go find a job in that field and get the support and the connections in there that will help you to start a business later.
Awesome. Those are really great tips, and experience is really, really important. And so we've got a question from one of the attendees here, and he's saying, oh, you are not a tech person. How do you run tech businesses or work with tech businesses? So the next question is hire partner with tech people, or who are your main tech partners? How do you find them? And what is the role of curiosity in all of that?
It's a great question, actually. I am not a tech person, but I am a geek, and I think that's the curiosity part, right? Being a geek means being really interested in anything technology, and I'm really interested in anything technology and how it works. I'm not really interested in a mobile phone. I'm interested in everything that is in a mobile phone, and I'm also especially interested in the future of technology. So I'm interested in the iPhone 20 or the OnePlus 16T or whatever it's going to be, because this is where I can dream about what will be possible in technology in the future. And that's what gets me interested in working with engineers, because those are the people working now on the technology that's going to be in the iPhone 20. The iPhone that just came out, it's 5-year-old technology already. It's not interesting. Everything that's in there, it's been tried by various companies. It's all been put into a nice package and done. What's next? That's what I'm interested in. So we help our clients with their communication strategy in China, which means as a business, as people, we're not experts in technology, we're experts in communication. So we're not experts in our clients' technologies. They are the experts. The way I explain in a very simple way what we do usually is our clients tell us what they want to say, and we tell, let's say, a Bluetooth low energy company that has a new chip that is 60% more efficient than anything they had before, that the market has. They're going to tell us, we want to say that. Okay, we don't need to know the technical details, they know it, but we're going to find a way to tell it to the market, whether it's to talk technical with them, and for that we'll use the engineers from our clients who are going to be the tech people talking to the media, or talking to their partners. If we need to get some content that's written, for example, then we might write some content, but we're going to get the source material from our clients, so the technical material is going to come from them. It doesn't mean that we're all not technology people. Actually, I think probably 2/3 of my team members are trained programmers or engineers, one way or another, that just didn't want to go into engineering. They were more interested in the communication side of it. So, we hired very recently someone in Shanghai who just graduated from I forget which university, but she graduated in computer science. Right, so she's a master's degree in computer science, studied English at the same time, she's Chinese, of course, and didn't want to go into designing, products or programming all day, because she was more interested in communicating with people. So she's taking those skills, understanding what computer science is, what programming is. Her clients are in software, actually, and in programming tools. One of her clients is in programming tools, and she got right away what the client did, and because of that, she's going to be more efficient in dealing with some of the stakeholders, some of the people that she needs to talk to on the client side and on the other side.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how how we blend our expertise in communication with our interest and our curiosity in technology. And to go back to your curiosity here, I mentioned I still read about 200-300 articles a day. I don't have the time for the 1,000 anymore, but 95% of those are technology news. It's going to be semiconductor news, semiconductor industry news. It's going to be consumer technology news. You know, I read every single article on The Verge every single day. I read everything about technology in China on Bloomberg, on Wall Street Journal. And, you know, I've got feeds that send me all that information. So everything that I, you know, intake is about technology, and it's the same for the rest of the team. I hope that answers the question.
I think so. I think it's a great answer. I hope it answered the question. And okay, another question is asked here. It says, as a PR expert, what are the best strategies to enter in the Chinese market, and what channel remains the most exciting into the future?
Let me open that question at the same time.
Yeah,
It's a bit long as a PR expert. What are the best strategies to entering the Chinese market? That's a wide question because it really depends on the market that you're actually trying to penetrate, because China is a big market full of lots of big markets that are full of lots of smaller markets that are full of lots of smaller markets, and it really depends on what you are. So because we focus technology rather than B2C, our clients usually have very specific target groups of you know, partners or clients. So, and for that, the best strategy, it's not only for China, it's for everywhere, is to know your market, know who you're going to be marketing to, and know how you're going to make yourself known to them. And that's what we do. So we do a lot of research for our clients, but we also work with the research that they do. So, you know, we're helping an Israeli cybersecurity company right now. They already did all of that research of understanding, you know, who were their potential top 30 or 50 or 100 clients in China, and then who should they be talking to in these companies to get them interested in their solutions. And we help them to connect with these people to make sure that these, you know, 100 people in 100 top companies are going to read about them with PR strategy, so with content in the press or with social media content and with the right message. So going more specifically to China, identify who you're talking to, the best strategy is to make sure that your message connects with the person you're talking to or the market that you're talking to in China. So it means adapting to China. It means making sure that you understand the Chinese environment, that you understand the Chinese culture, the Chinese business culture, the Chinese codes of communication. That's also really important. They're very different from the US or from Europe, or from Africa, or from wherever else you are. China is very specific for that. So making sure that you understand and that you localize your story for them. And then the third thing in there is to make sure that that you do not look, that the company does not look like it's coming to China to sell a product and that's it. One of the most important things for companies coming to China, big or small, or entrepreneurs even starting a business in China, is to bring a solution that will support the Chinese economy, the Chinese society, because this is how Chinese consumers, this is how Chinese businesses, this is how the Chinese government is looking at cooperation with foreign entities, people. Like, you are in China to help China grow as a country, grow as an economy, grow as a society. If you are not there to help, if you are there only to make profits and take them away, you will be kicked out of the market and you will buy the consumers, buy the people. And it always happened to a lot of companies, big companies. Microsoft went through that. Qualcomm went through that. Apple went through that, where they all had patches of you know, PR crises in the past, where they were seen as companies that were just selling a product and then taking the profit, but really not bringing anything to the Chinese society. And they had to change their communication strategy, and through that, their business strategy, in really working more closely with China to help the society grow. So the question.
Yeah, I think those are all the questions we have.
Maybe
Yeah.
I think there was a second part to that question.
Okay, yeah, the second question was, what channel remains the most exciting into the future?
What do you mean by channel, Anthony?
Maybe Anthony, I can unmute you so that you probably can maybe communicate the question.
Yeah, so I was actually, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so I was
Yeah, we
actually
can hear you.
talking about, yes, the single best channel for communicating with Chinese.
Ah.
You know, there are some interesting ones that we know, but into the future, which ones do you see to be standing the test of time?
Now the channel, yeah, the channel. Let's say today, we can look at the future after. Let's say, so the channel depends on who you're communicating with and what the objective of your communication is going to be. Right. So if you're a company, a corporation that's connecting with partners or consumers or customers in B2B, or investors or whatever, there are lots of different channels that are going to serve different purposes. You're going to have the media, the proper media, like a media organization, let's say Caixin, for example, or I'm sure most of you know TechNode, or even People's Daily or some of the economic papers. And a lot of companies are going to use these channels, and some of the more specialized channels in there. So if we look at Semiconductor, there's a whole ecosystem of Semiconductor press, business press in there, and under that there's a lot of vertical press in Semiconductor. You've got LED, you've got sensors, you've got lots of different things. Those are going to be the channels, and still in the future, that are going to be the more, let's say, serious, direct corporate and product communication. Those are the channels that any company is going to use to give their serious information to the market. This is who we are, this is what our product does, because this is not necessarily going to be challenged as long as the media is a reputable media, let's say. And then you're going to have other channels, social media, for example. And in social media, you're going to have lots of different types of channels. And then it's also how you use that channel that's going to be important. WeChat is obviously the biggest one, and it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon, except in the US and India. But in China, it's staying, and it's still going to be an important communication channel. And more than that, when we're a company, when you are a company, it is going to be your main owned, so your communication channel in China. It's more important site in China, for example, to give your corporate information. Now, it's less trusted than the media, because the media is third party. They wrote about you, a bit debatable in China, but we won't go into that. But the WeChat channel, your official WeChat account in China, is going to serve the same purpose as your website outside of China. You'll have your corporate information, you'll have your contact information, and your update. So the feed, which becomes your blog, if you want. But it's not really going to be a channel where you're going to have conversations with your customers or consumers in there, unless it's through a CRM system that's included in there. But that's also a bit complicated. So it's more of a one-way communication to people who already know you. That's the WeChat. And then you've got all the other channels. We work quite a bit with Zhihu right now, the equivalent of Quora in China. So it's a Q&A platform where companies can have a page and they can own or participate into topics, and people from the company can participate in these topics. And there, for some of our technical clients, we're going to be part of technical discussions or solutions discussions. So going back to our Israeli cybersecurity clients, they work specifically in the payment processing, in the cross-border payment processing security systems. And they're going to be part of the conversation about cross-border e-commerce on that topic, answering questions, giving information, because that's important for them to be visible in that channel, because that's the channel where their potential clients are going to be participating. Companies that are e-commerce companies that are selling outside of China, which are their potential clients, the CTOs, the CFOs are going to be in that channel. So you're going to have the conversations, the meaningful conversations about the technology of your products or the benefits of your solutions in there. And then you're going to have all the others, and there's millions, right? But let's go to Weibo or I don't know what else, Toutiao. Those are going to be more on the consumer side. If you're a B2C business, B2B businesses have less of a value on on Weibo, but B2C are going to have, because you will have a conversation with your clients there. They will be responding to your posts. They will be responding to your messages. They will be responding to influencers who write about your product or your company in there. So Weibo is more of a discovery platform for a business to have consumers, customers discover your business, whereas I see WeChat as more of a re-engagement platform. You've engaged with someone in a meeting, at an event, online. You get them to follow your account, your WeChat account, and then you can re-engage them. They continue following. Looking at the future, it's super hard to tell. The media is still going to be there. We will, a lot of people say the media is going to disappear, the media is being paid for, but you're always going to have the need for independent, trusted media, even in China. That consumers, that people in general need a trustful source, and companies' own communications are never going to be really trustful because it's you talking about yourself. Social media is one of the least trustful places, because you've got rumors and things that are not checked. American elections are a good example of that. China is a bit different because you do have some regulations, but still there's lots of rumors, and you won't trust fully what's coming out of social media. The media itself is there to be that organization that is independent from the company, that is somewhat independent from the government in China, and that is going to be independently reviewing the information that you give to it or that it receives, and then give an honest, again with some asterisks, opinion on what they're writing about. So I still believe that press is going to be a really important channel in the future, through the various forms that they have. And then in social, the actual channels, I don't see them being very different from what they are now in the next 5, 10, 20 years. It's more going to be a question of tech, VR or AR in the future, but it's still going to be a version of Douyin or WeChat that is projected in front of your eyes on an invisible screen or something that follows you everywhere, on nanotechnology that's in front of you all the time. That's the future of technology.
That's really great insights over there. And I think we're going to take one last question because we're almost reaching our time limit. So this person says here, for people who don't have a technical background but want to enter the tech industry, want to enter the tech industry, such as working for your company, do you have any suggestions for them in the case of me? And it says, what other expertise are being needed apart from having a tech background? Yeah, something in that point.
Every single expertise is needed in to support the tech. Every single one. We're a bunch of geeks that are communicators, so our skills are based on being able to put a couple words together that make sense, which are things that a lot of engineers are good at doing. So we translate engineer talk into normal talk, let's say, and that is a skill that we build over time, and then we can translate that, or we can expand onto that skill to develop stories, whether it's articles that we write, whether it's social media posts, whether it's visuals, pictures or videos, and that's the communication skills. But you've got some law firms, for example, that specialize in technology, in helping technology, and there are a bunch of lawyers who know how to write things that nobody else understands except for lawyers, because they're lawyers, but it's specifically made for the challenges that a technology company is going to face, especially if it's a foreign technology company in China, a Chinese technology company that's going outside of China. You're going to need lawyers to do that. Then you're going to need accountants. Then you're going to need, our admin person, for example. So we've got a person who joined us 2 years ago now as an admin. We needed an admin, someone who's going to do the administration of the office. Well, we kind of need that person to also understand what we're working on and what our clients are doing. So to be curious into the technology. So she's an expert, or she's becoming an expert in finance and accounting, because she's dealing with our finance and accountants. She's dealing with our vendors. She's dealing with us, changing office recently. She needs to understand what we need in terms of technology and what our client needs us to have in terms of technology, and what they do, so she can, she doesn't need to ask, okay, I don't understand with this one, it says semiconductor, which box should I put it? Is it automotive, or is it? She knows where to put that. So the technology industry needs, anything. If you want to serve the technology industry without a technology background, it goes back to the curiosity. If you're curious about technology, if you want to understand technology, it's already a good start, and then you'll find a job serving technology clients. In the PR industry, we focus on technology only, but there's some agencies that have a technology team, an automotive team, a yogurts team, a space exploration team. No company has that. But it could be agriculture, it could be food, and the people who work in these teams, they're passionate about the industry that they serve, but they're professionals in communication. So those who do food PR, they're passionate about food. They're super interested about food, and they might be reading 200 articles a day about food. For me, it's technology. And for you, Minge, who asked the question, you might be reading about technology, but you might become, the accountant of a technology company in the future, or of a PR agency that supports technology companies. So you stay curious about the industry that you're interested in. We're not going to be experts in everything. That's not possible. That's why you need to focus your curiosity.
True. Awesome. I hope that answers the question clearly, and I think that's a wrap up for today's event. And thank you so much, Simon, for really sharing your insights about curiosity, and also giving us a little more understanding about exploring the Chinese market ecosystem. And I think it's really great. I'm sure like a lot of us learned a lot of things from this, and we hope to see you more often, and probably maybe you guys can, I think probably I can share your QR code on the group chat so that other people can follow your channel as well on WeChat. And you guys can also follow the Startup Grinds channel, and so you can be updated on our events. And make sure you follow Networking Matters, because it's one of the places where you'll find a lot of amazing events, both for Startup Grind and other startup organizations in China and Beijing and Shanghai especially. So make sure I'm gonna share the QR codes and the links in the group chat, so don't worry about that. And so thank you very much, Simon, for this amazing talk today. We really appreciate your presence and your time. And I think this will be the end of it. If you have any other questions, please make sure you can send it in the group chat, and